Hello everyone, this is Michael Voss. I am here with No Soundbites Allowed at CPAC 2019, and one of the great guests I have today for you, just following Vice President Pence, is obviously Maj Toure. And did I get it right this time?
Yeah, you got it right. It's perfect. It's perfect.
And folks, and we always want to make sure we get it right, and he's a very influential and wonderful advocate for the Second Amendment, and we do want to speak with him a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I want to start off with is, can you tell me, what's your background?
My background is a Philly kid, North Philly. That's where I'm from. Philly most of my life. Just somebody that saw information that was missing in regards to the Second Amendment. Having uncles that were in Iraq and Desert Storm and Vietnam, having a thorough understanding of firearms and seeing friends of mine that had firearms without that same knowledge, and then a lot of those guys wound up catching cases, possession charges, and things of that nature. I just knew that there was something that we could do to push back against some of that with information. And in doing so, we started this organization to inform people, not only about, especially urban America, but not only about their human right to self-defense as stated in the Second Amendment, but also, political power and social resources that come along from you being informed and empowered. So we created Black Guns Matter to deal with conflict resolution, de-escalation, and again, political education in conjunction with basic firearm safety, knowing your rights and responsibilities as a firearm owner.
Well, one of the things I find interesting about what you mentioned is we don't often hear a lot about people of color who own firearms or are advocates for the Second Amendment. What has been your experience with that?
Well, traditionally, melanated beings have a storied history with firearms and tradition in America. We fought in every major war in America for America, even during times when we weren't even allowed the right to vote or allowed the right to have firearms in any other space. So we've had a storied tradition along with firearms. The difference here is it hasn't been highlighted. It's been presented as if it's something that's new, and it hasn't been. And that's actually very more recent, to make sure that, urban America more specifically, not related just to or isolated just to one particular race. Urban America, since the advent of more recent gun control, which is racist in its origin and its expansion, now there's a push to try to make sure that urban America isn't highlighted in that fight, to protect and defend freedoms. But as you inform people from that demographic and show, this is your human right. This is not given by government. This can't be taken away by government, as stated in the Constitution, as stated in the Bill of Rights. They get that. They on board with it. We on board with it. So it's a simple push after that. It's not really a difficult concept. It's just that, certain entities have tried to make sure that that information isn't being presented in urban America, because that's the largest, pockets of a dense population. New York, 8.5 million people. They don't want, certain individuals and entities do not want a well-informed, educated, and well-armed populace, because it's much more difficult to control people that are, fall under those categories. So our job is to present the information. If you don't want a firearm, cool, but at least you're making that decision from a well-rounded and well-informed perspective, not just falsehoods that somebody told you because they can control you that way.
Let me ask you, when you go out into the community, when you're speaking to many of the people out there, what do you hear back? What are the biggest concerns they give to you about the issue? The
biggest concerns from urban America is, since there has been a stigma around firearms ownership, should we have firearms because we don't want to get shot? And my response to that is, a lot of times there's corrupt portions of law enforcement, not all, corrupt portions, small portions, that are shooting people unarmed anyway. So I wouldn't tell somebody to consistently lay down. So that's one of the biggest concerns. But once we present and show the data and the information, how, in most states, outside of just law enforcement, corrupt portions of law enforcement or tyrannical situations, when we start to show that the 15 constitutional carry states have traditionally lower violent crime, that's the biggest thing that they're pleased by. When we show, hey, places like Arizona or places that even aren't constitutional carry per se, but have more of a respectful firearms culture, have lower crimes. Their main focus is being able to protect themselves from the bad guy. The bad guy doesn't most times have on a cop uniform. Sometimes the bad guy is just a bad guy in your neighborhood. So getting past that, nervousness and giving people those answers, that initial pushback that was there dissipates very quickly.
Now, You mentioned a couple of things about gun control laws, gun legislation that's restricted individuals, and we're going to get into that in 1 second.
Yeah.
Let me ask you first, you've been here at CPAC. I know yesterday you were speaking with many people. You have a huge schedule, and I thank you for speaking with us today. But let me ask you, what brought you here, and how has the response been? Because I know in one of the interviews you had yesterday, there was a little bit of pushback on some issues. But how would you answer that?
The pushback came because, the interview yesterday, the young lady had the pushback because she believes that someone that's a criminal that goes to jail, that did their time, a violent crime, doesn't have the human right to defend their life after they've been rehabilitated. I disagree with that. That's a beautiful thing. We don't always have to agree on every single talking point, but finding a respectful place or a medium, or even exposing some of those contradictions and saying the Second Amendment is a human right. There aren't guns and firearms in jail. And if this person isn't rehabilitated, then they shouldn't be out on the street. But if they paid their debt to society, their ability to vote, their ability to defend their life should be something that's available to them, and it is available to them. Being in that space where pretending like that's not the case because we don't feel comfortable about it isn't really what the Second Amendment is about. It's not about being comfortable. It's about you as a human having the human right to defend your life. You've paid your penance to society. Now you get right back to your, all of your rights afforded to you endowed to you by your Creator. So for the most part, the general gun owners understand that, and Second Amendment supporters understand that. Sometimes people that are in a conservative movement aren't necessarily as Second Amendment supportive as they would like to believe. So it's good to have those conversations to showcase a weakness in their particular ideology for the moment, because then that's how they become strengthened. But it's a very simple concept, and I think most of the room here has received that and understands that logic very simply and very well. As far as what I do, I'm getting love here and everywhere I go because, we come from a righteous place. I got knowledge of self. I am who I am. Everybody in here knows I'm not pretending to be from suburban whatever or rural America. I am hood. I am from, most people in here, they live in a hood, whether it's suburban or rural. If you're not a really rich person and you don't have a gate around your complex, you probably live in a hood, So the reason why that truth resonates is because I'm genuine. And our mission is genuine, and the work that we're doing is productive. And you would be very hard-pressed to find, something wrong with educating Americans from whatever sector of America they're from. You'd be very hard-pressed to come up with a legitimate reason to be against that. And I think most of the people in this room, outside of, some people that are biased, because they exist in every room, but most of the people in these type of conservative rooms understand that and they're behind it. So I don't get pushback. It might be a little bit of, back and forth about certain levels of ideology, but as far as like the overall push for getting urban America on board and conservative Americans finding out how they can get on board with supporting organizations like ours, I think that theme is consistent here. And that's a theme of support and push and getting behind it. Especially now, we're leaning on more conservatives to do that with their resources, not just with their ideology, with their resources, because we need all of the help that we can get.
Now, and I always like to ask how you're seeing that, because a lot of people think, oh, you can't do it. Mm-hmm. But you can, because all we have to do is be involved. We just have to be there. Yeah. Now, and I think it's good to also give us challenges. Mm-hmm. What do we really believe? Mm-hmm. And I notice a lot of people who don't are thrown when you say, well, did you think of this or not? Yeah. And that kind of brings me to something we were talking about yesterday, because we were talking about the red flag legislation. And that's something I've been following a lot. A lot of people know I'm a very strong advocate of the Second Amendment. And the red flag legislation, for those who are not familiar with it, you're familiar.
Yeah, absolutely.
You go ahead.
Yeah, so red flag laws as they're presented are, which is ironic because China's communist flag is red, Russia's communist flag is red, so it's always interesting, the wording to me, in a place about freedom that we would label something. It's not called the freedom flag laws, because it's not freedom, it's actually restrictive. It comes up with a bunch of different ways to extract not only firearms from homes without due process, without warrants, without people having their days in court and evaluating in evidence. It in essence says someone can say that they feel uncomfortable and you have a bunch of guns and there can be a scenario where, and there have been scenarios over here not too far in Baltimore, where someone said this about an elderly gentleman, and they do a no-knock raid whatever time in the morning, and somebody dies, a citizen dies. So this isn't about due process. It isn't about making more, people, Americans safe. It's about a contradiction in regards to the freedoms that we have and the enslavement that's being presented. Not only that, under extreme protection orders or ERPOs, extreme risk protection orders, there's also a clause in there where if we say that this person is unsafe, we can now go get their children.
Right, and that's the thing I was speaking about. And I know a lot of people aren't familiar with this. And
right.
As far as I've found in New York and Connecticut, Indiana, in fact, every state that has a child protective service, they're mandated that if the home is too dangerous to have a firearm,
you gotta go get the children. Yep.
Which means now you're fighting without having committed a crime. You're not fighting for your property and your children.
Yep.
How have you, when you've spoken to that, or have you spoken to that with other people? How did they react when you mentioned it?
So the vast majority of people don't understand that concept, because sometimes bills come out and they're presented one way as if they're a great service to the American public. But when you read the actual bills and you see the fine print, it's not even fine print. It's like right there. When you see that, you say, oh no, this is not okay. But the general public may not have the time to go through and sit through bills and what they actually mean, so forth and so on. For the same reason why I think there's a lot of politicians supporting universal background checks. We already have background checks every time there's a lawful purchase, but they're asking for more and more encroachments and infringements on our rights. So I think that the general public, once you explain it to them, this is what this actually means. They're taken aback, and they go, yo, I'm not down with that. I'm not down with that. And that's a good thing, because when you have that conversation, expose that contradiction or the outright lie, right? When you expose that, the American people make a decision, and they go, no, no one's going to disagree with safety, but we're all going to disagree on someone encroaching on our rights, right? So when I share that information with people and tie that in, people love their children. So they don't want to be in. I've had friends that have had disagreements with girlfriends or spouses separate, and no one, male or female, wants anyone else to tell someone, oh, this person's a danger. Now we get to take their children, and we get to take their means to defend their children. Explaining that in very layman terms is how we expose a lot of falsehoods, and everybody's been very receptive to that.
I'm glad to hear that, because I've been fighting that. And sadly, I lost the fight in New York State, which recently joined into the list of states that have red flag legislation. But I know that it's in the Senate and it's in the House as well. And I do recommend for people, look into it in your own state, ask your own senator, your representative, and fight against this. Let me ask you, of the legislation we've seen, there's been a very large push, especially since Parkland. We've seen a big push against firearms in general. A lot of gun control legislation. I think another 123 have been enacted since Parkland. What do you believe is the most troubling national issue in that regard? And what's a way that we could possibly address that or fight?
H.R. 8 is the worst thing. H.R. 8 on a national level. That just got passed in the House. It's going to get killed in the Senate more than likely, but the fact that this many of public servants are okay with infringing further on Americans' rights, when re-election time comes in, I would like for everyone to really reevaluate that and look at, this is a politician on both sides of the aisle that agreed with further infringements on humans' rights to defend their life. That's exactly what it is. But again, that's H.R. 8. That's something that everybody should definitely be contacting their people about and saying, this is not something that we as the American public want.
What does H.R. 8 summarize?
H.R. 8 summarizes that, so for example, people say, well, why wouldn't you want a background check? Well, we already have background checks. Every time that you purchase a firearm, you fill out a federal form called a 4473. When you fill that form out, you get a quick background check, and that person gets a call. Yes, you can sell this person a gun. No, you cannot sell this person a gun. Or hold on, we need some more information here. That is a background check, a criminal and character background check. That happens, yes, even at gun shows. When they're calling them a universal background check, when they're calling it that, what that means is if I have a firearm and I want to loan it to someone to go to the range, if I don't give them a background check every time, as soon as I do that, that person is now committing a felony. What that means is if my significant other defends their life in the house, if I'm not there with my firearm, that person is potentially being a felon.
Which no one would consider as an option.
Right. With that being the case, if I have a child and I want to sell my child my firearms, I've raised my child, I know they're responsible, they're safe, they have no criminal background, I'd have to run them through. So even individual person-to-person transfers and sales from family members now has to go through another thing that you have to pay for, another background check every single time on a federal level.
That's crazy because no one's thinking of the consequence, like many laws, and then what? And
right.
No one's really addressing that.
They're not addressing it because the mainstream media isn't talking about it. So when I say, let's have this conversation on left media, urban hip-hop and so forth and so on, they get scared. They say things like, oh, we don't know if we want to have them on. Or, very popular radio station or television shows like The Breakfast Club, even though Charlemagne will say, oh, I want to have him on, but then he'll take a personal issue or something like that, or even guns or whatever, and then won't give us that platform. And then in turn, we come to where the right is, and there's media like this that is open about this, and then some people are concerned about, well, why are you only doing right media? Because the left wants to continue to enslave and have people uninformed. I'm sorry, and I know I have friends, family that still vote that way, but the facts are the facts of the matter, And so we have to make sure that we're stepping it up in the conservative community, hence me saying the conservative community has to get beyond organizations like Black Guns Matter to put resources behind our work because we are already entrenched in, we doing the trench work, And the resources from the conservative movement linking with organizations like ours that are educating people on these types of very unconstitutional bills, and as well as assisting with conflict resolution while keeping Americans out of jail so they don't fall victim to not ignorance of the law is no excuse, and doing that, that's how we push back and that's how we maintain and secure freedom.
Let me ask you, for people who want to follow what you're doing, where you're going to be, and more importantly, the issues that we're talking about, and maybe trying to find a solution for them, where could they go?
If they want to support our work, all of our entire movement is crowdsourced. GoFundMe.com/Black Guns Matter. If they want to hit me on social medias at Maj Toure, MajToure. And we just, MajToure.com. We just want people to just be more active and finding out this information. You can go on to U.S. Congress.gov, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Go on there, check out these bills, see what they're doing. They give the breakdown of what they actually mean. Then find out who your local reps are. Work that ticket up from local all the way up to federal to make your voice heard. This has to translate into political power. This has to translate into the work getting done. If not, we just saying stuff and there's nothing behind those words.
No, I agree with you because I've seen that in New York. I've gone to and I've had interviews with people who voted for these bills and told me on tape, believe it or not, they said, oh, it's completely flawed. You're right, Mike, the analysis is right. It's a bad, in particular, red flag legislation. And they voted for it, and now it's law because we couldn't get enough people. It takes us getting involved. I agree with you.
For sure.
And that's true of any law, no matter what we're trying to go against. Let me ask, I think we've got about 2 minutes here. Is there anything that we haven't addressed that you would like to mention?
I want to address everybody donating and supporting our work. That's what has to happen. You have to donate and support our work. GoFundMe.com/Black Guns Matter. We're already doing the work. Help us.
And everyone has the information. We're going to make sure I link to it in all of my media. But I do want to thank you, Maj Toure. You have taken a lot of time. I know it was a crazy, hectic day today. I know you're backed up, but I thank you for this. And we're going to stay in touch. We're going to follow up on this because we have a lot in common.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to be a fantastic thing.
Absolutely.
So I thank you, and everybody, we're going to say, check them out.
Peace, be safe, be solutionary.